Hello everyone, peace be with you. So in a previous video, I showed how much risky behaviors have declined amongst adolescents in the most recent decade, especially compared to the 1990s. And I proposed the idea that a large contributor to those positive trends has been the large influx of immigrants into the United States and into that adolescent population since the turn of the century. The book, The Immigrant Paradox, published in 2012 by the American Psychological Association, is a collection of research that shows trends that educators and parents need to be aware of. In essence, it draws the conclusion that the more acculturated or assimilated a child becomes into American culture, the less likely they are to make positive physical and mental health decisions, as well as having success in educational outcomes. This means within immigrant communities, the more assimilated children are, the worse that they do. Some key ways this is measured. First is by categorizing kids based on their parents' language fluency. So in immigrant families, and this is found across a variety of ethnic groups, if you have both parents who are fluent in English versus having one or more parent who's not, you have children who are less likely to be multilingual themselves, which itself is an indicator of assimilation because America is an extremely monolingual society compared to the rest of the world. And those children who grow up with both parents being fluent in English, their outcomes are worse than the kids who grow up in a house with less English fluency in it. So those of us who teach English in schools especially, we need to understand these things. Now, also in measuring assimilation, there's a difference in outcomes for first-generation and second-generation immigrant children. And in the APA studies, they define first-generation as children who were born in a different country and came to the United States as children. And they define second-generation as children who were born in the United States. It's almost universal across immigrant groups that first-generation children and adolescents make better health and life outcome decisions than the average native-born non-immigrant American, who will primarily be people of European descent. But by the second generation, for immigrants, that trend flips. So the children of immigrant adults are generally better off health-wise than the average American. But the grandchildren are worse off and more at risk in this trend, and certainly they're more assimilated than the first generation. Now, do these trends exist amongst Muslim communities in America? Of course, it can be hard to find studies like this that look at communities based on religious identity, because academic analysis in America tends to favor analysis via ethnic, national, or racial identity. But we can ascertain some things by looking at statistics pertaining to the Somali community in Minnesota. The Minnesota Department of Health has a work group that tracks trends in substance abuse amongst adolescents in the state via surveying, similar to what the CDC does. In 2016, they asked in their surveying whether or not kids were Somali. So this enabled them to filter the results in order to compare trends in Somali youth to those of the total population in Minnesota. And the sample size was pretty large. They had over 3,600 Somali respondents. The results of this study showed that overall, Somali youth contributed very positively to the net health of young people in Minnesota. And what contributes to this especially is the vastly lower rates at which Somali youth chose to use alcohol and marijuana compared to the total Minnesota youth population. And when it comes to substance abuse, there are different forms of it, but the overwhelming majority of young people and people in general who get exposed to substance abuse are exposed to it through alcohol and marijuana use. So in the previous video, I showed the general population trend from the CDC of the decline in substance abuse amongst American youth since the 1990s, and that was especially in use of alcohol and marijuana. And we know from the APA's own publishing that immigrant children who are less assimilated are less likely to adopt these vices. And here from the Minnesota Department of Health, we can see clear as day how an immigrant population is bringing down these substance abuse averages in young people. And the Minnesota Department of Health study points out how bringing down these averages in alcohol and marijuana use, they especially have the reciprocal effect of bringing down the averages as well in suicidal ideation, suicide attempts, and self-harm, because there's direct correlation between recent use of alcohol and marijuana especially, and those poor mental health indicators. So in the same surveying of young people who had seriously considered suicide in the last year, 29% of them had used alcohol within the last 30 days, and 21% of them had used marijuana within the last 30 days. Of the students in that survey who said they had actually attempted suicide in the last year, 40% of them said they had used alcohol within the last 30 days, and 32% said they had used marijuana within the last 30 days. And of the respondents, this is the total Minnesota population, who said that they had committed self-harm in the last year, 29% said that they'd used alcohol in the past 30 days, and 20% said they used marijuana in the last 30 days. So when you have a population of young people taking up a larger percentage of the overall population of young people, and there's some school districts in Minnesota where in the 1990s their percentage of Somali students was less than 1, and now it is above 30% and some 50% in elementary school. And I have some of those numbers in my book, in Training Engaging Muslim Students in Public Schools. So when you have an influx of an immigrant population like that, on a statistical level, it contributes positively to the overall mental health of the young population in that community. So in the next video I make, I'll dissect these numbers a little further and look into some other numbers from this same study and talk about the implications of them for both public school educators as well as Muslim parents, because I have both of those groups following me on this channel now, and talk about the things that, for educators especially, what we need to think about when it comes to our role in being facilitators of the assimilation of these immigrant groups. And there's no doubt that the public school system is a place where this assimilation takes place for children. If the need to dig further into this stuff is clear to you, then please sign up to take my training course, Engaging Muslim Students in Public Schools. You can get the book on Amazon. The links are in the description box. Please subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Instagram. Leave a comment with your thought or questions. And thank you very much, and peace be with you.